Michael Patrick Shields is on the air.
Good morning, world.
Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant Thursday to you. Michael Patrick Shields, heard all across the state of Michigan and seen on Fox 47 television this morning. A new poll shows a drop in popularity for Governor Rick Snyder among Michigan voters. Fewer than half of them viewing him favorably. The poll was released. It found 44% of likely Michigan voters questioned the governor and the way he's going about doing things. How about that? The Epic MRA poll says it polled 600 likely voters Saturday through Monday for the Detroit Free Press and WXYZ TV. Shortly after Rick Snyder took office, the Epic MRA poll of 600 likely voters found 59% viewing him favorably. But now it's much lower than that. Carol Kane, who writes politics for the Free Press and hosts Michigan Matters on CBS television in Detroit, is with us. She's on her way to an event with Governor Snyder this morning at the Detroit Athletic Club. Good morning to you.
Good. Very early morning to you, Michael Patrick.
Yeah, you're not just on your way to the event. You are the event, as I understand it, moderating pancakes and politics with Governor Snyder himself?
It's going to be a mob scene there, I am certain, with all that is going on across the state. Yeah, the Michigan Chronicle has this event every spring, 4 events during the springtime, and this is the first of the 6th season, and we've done it together. And, again, we will be airing this, by the way, as a Michigan Matters next Saturday, not this coming Saturday, next Saturday at 11 o'clock if anyone wants to see it. But the governor will take to the stage in about 2 hours, and I will be asking him questions, include some audience questions as well, and I'm sure they're going to be asking how the reinventing process is. And, of course, one of the questions I will ask him is how he feels about his popularity tanking a little bit here.
Is Jeff Daniels going to be there? That's what I want to know.
You know, Jeff Daniels will be there in spirit because we know what he said, that the governor told him. The governor takes issue that he said he would not change those incentives. And so what I find kind of a little bit disheartening, if you will, is with all the things, the important things that are being talked about, and not that the movie incentives aren't important. They are very important. Is there are many things being discussed, but that certainly has taken the lion's share of attention in terms of all the things that the governor said coming in he was going to do that he indeed has done. And now people are, as you go up, you go down in terms of these popularity ratings. So, but hey, let me ask you, what would you ask the governor?
Well, I would ask him exactly what you said you were going to ask him, and I know what he's going to answer because he usually answers every question with the same answer, and the answer is always, well, I'm just focused on fixing Michigan. So if you say to him, how about why are your approval ratings down? He'll say, I don't really worry about that kind of thing. I just focus on fixing Michigan. I guarantee you that's what he's going to say.
Yeah, he probably will have that pretty much pat answer for a lot of it. But again, there's going to be so many different, between education and the hit for K through 12 and higher education and the pensions and the movie incentives. Again, he said he was going to be making the pain felt by everybody, but I know there's a lot of upset people out there. So, but keep in mind, this is not a done deal. This is just what he is proposing. And even within his own party, there are some Republicans who are not happy with some of these things that he's talking about. So there's going to be a lot of discussion.
That's what Senator Whitmer said to me yesterday, the Senate Democratic leader. She said, you asked me what the first fight in Lansing was going to be, and I told you it was going to be intra-party. And she says she's right, that they're kind of squabbling for the direction on the Republican side because some of these cuts are even unpalatable to the rank-and-file Republicans.
Well, and we know Michigan is in a crisis, so something's going to have to give here with revenues being what they are, with the economy still not improving anytime soon. It's getting a little better, but not much. There's just a lot of problems here. So he will have some explaining to do, if you will. But, hey, I have to ask you a question.
Yes. When
are you going to Ireland? And is it true what I heard through the grapevine that you're talking to the U.S. ambassadors to Ireland while you're over there?
We will be talking to Dan Rooney, the United States ambassador to Ireland, the man whose job I wish I had.
You travel in the big leagues, my friend. That's much I can guarantee you. If there's big power brokers around, Michael Patrick Shields, you're in the mix.
That's nice of you. I figured, that on St. Patrick's Day, if we broadcast from Ireland with all Irish voices, musicians and pub owners and priests and officials, the ambassador, we would have easily the most authentic St. Patrick's Day morning radio party in the state. Can I confirm that?
I'll tell you what. I'm 50% Irish, so I'll be with you 50% over there in spirit. Wishing
right.
I was there because it sounds like a great time.
Well, thank you. And that's brought to you by the Resorts of Tullymore, and they have an Irish name in their title, too, so it works out nicely. And the other question I want to ask you is, speaking of this Pancakes and Politics event with Carol Kane, who will be moderating it at the Detroit Athletic Club this morning, do you think Glenn Beck will be in the crowd?
I think Glenn Beck is trying to steer clear of Detroit at the moment. I think he likes to stir the pot and get things going, and he certainly did that with his comments of comparing Detroit and World War II, Hiroshima and bombing and fallout. Certainly Detroit has problems. Anybody knows that, but I think the comparison just kind of rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. We know a couple of pastors from Detroit were there seeing him. I fully expect when he needs the ratings bump, he will come to Detroit, but I'm not sure this is it.
Yeah, well, you're going to be with Mayor Bing, aren't you?
Mayor Bing will be sitting with me, as will Bob Ficano and Beth Chappell, a bunch of other folks. A lot of power brokers from Metro Detroit will be at this event. It's a sellout at 400 plus. In fact, they've been turning away people for this Pancakes and Politics for weeks here. So, but again, reminder, people want to see this. We are taping it a week from this Saturday at 11 o'clock on CBS Detroit.
And you can see it online, too. What's the web address?
CBSDetroit.com, Michigan Matters. You'll see a little icon there on the left-hand screen. When you call it up, CBSDetroit.com, you will see the Michigan Matters. And again, that's next week. This week, by the way, I have a Women's History Month. I have Susie Avery, who's the new Women's Commission Executive Director. Governor Snyder just appointed her. And Marge Byington up from Grand Rapids, and Denise Illich. And Elizabeth Parkinson, who's number 2 at the MEDC, talking about women in business, women in politics. And I think people will be a little surprised when they hear what the panel with Little Attitude has to say about it.
Yeah, we got to get you connected with Ann Doyle, too. Her new book is out called Powering Up. And you know Ann, she's in Auburn Hills.
I do.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm moderating an event the next week for Inform. Ann is at the event, or was yesterday, the Powering Up event. I'm doing one, in fact, with Florine Mark and some other women entrepreneurs about do you have what it takes to be an entrepreneur? That's March 15th at the Westin in Southfield. I'm kind of like you. I'm all over the state doing things and talking to lots of people. It keeps us in business, right?
Well, thanks for joining me so early before you go on stage in front of 400 people. I know you're in front of more than that when you're on television, but if you have 400 in front of you in a room like that, do you get nervous?
Not nervous. I sort of, because you never know quite how the audience is going to be. I like to have interaction, walking the audience with the microphone thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are real talkative. Other times they aren't. Usually when the questions, the more hard-hitting they are, they will hand me a question on index card saying, here you go. What do you think about asking this? So, and of course, asking questions for a living, I'm not shy about asking tough questions. But I feel I have a little edge to me right now.
Jeff Daniels was on the program yesterday, and I said to him, Jeff, you said that the governor is just the same old politician, same old, say one thing and do the other. And he said, yeah. So he's standing by his claim. I mean, he wasn't backing down at all. And,
no, in fact, Mitch Albom also said the same thing, that he heard the same thing. So, people, they say people hear about 10% of what you tell them. So who's to say what was said, how it was said? Things can change along the way. Maybe it sounded like a great idea. It's certainly the easiest thing to do would just be leave it as is and keep everybody happy, but there's going to be some tough decisions made here. So I know this conversation on the movie incentives has a lot more talking to do. This isn't over.
Yeah, when I asked Governor Snyder, I said, what do you think of what Jeff Daniels said? The governor said, well, I don't want to get into a match here over this. And you know what he meant. You know what kind of match. He didn't say it. But
Yeah, I know. He's very PC. He won't say that. If he was on cable, he might have said it. But anyway.
Well, have fun at the Detroit Athletic Club with the Pancakes and Politics. I would prefer the pancakes, frankly. But what the heck. We'll see you on TV and talk to you soon. You
take care, my friend. Talk to you later.
Hey, by the way, Carol,
Uh-huh.
I know that you're an acclaimed chef. So if you were making pancakes for the governor, what kind would they be?
They'd have apples, a special apple secret recipe in it, some blueberries, and some Michigan maple syrup.
Oh, man, everybody's hungry now. Thank you, Chef. Bye for now. That's Carol Kane, who is Cordon Bleu trained, as I understand. She's a Renaissance woman, indeed, at 17 minutes after the hour. We'll get some more reaction from the legislature. Mark Meadows, the state representative, the Democrat from East Lansing, will be with us coming up shortly. And Gary Austin is the anchor man. I wonder, Mr. Austin, since we got with Carol Kane there in the opening segment, if you could join us in the second segment and we can go through what the heck's going on in the world. Would that be okay with you this morning?
I'd be delighted to join you for that.
Fantastic. We will do that coming up in exactly 4 minutes. Stay by your radio, both hands on the wheel or both hands on the coffee cup this morning. Maybe you're flipping pancakes yourself in your kitchen watching us on Fox 47. Nice to see you this morning. Remember, I can see you too. And if you're listening around the state, it's very nice to meet you if you're tuned in for the first time. My name is Michael Patrick Shields, and we're back in a flash. Welcome back to the program. 23 minutes after the hour in our Gillespie Group storefront studio here, just a couple of blocks from the Capitol and just a couple of blocks from the office of Mark Meadows, the Democratic State Representative from East Lansing, who joins us in here. Good morning. Thanks for being here so early.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Were you on your way to the office this early, or is it an especially early visit?
I don't quite get there this early, but
Oh, good.
I'm in the office every day because I'm local. Some people have to get back to their districts and spend a couple of days back there, but I am never away from my district, and I'm never away from my office.
Yeah, you got the shortest commute of anyone.
No, Joan Bauer does, actually.
Oh, does she?
About 6 blocks.
She could walk to work.
That's right.
You could too, but it would take a little while.
A little while, yeah.
What do you make of this business? I mean, is it silly to look at Governor Snyder's approval rating at this time? I mean, what did we say? It was a 44% down from 53% when he was elected?
It's a little early, I think, to gauge, how popular a governor he's going to be. Although I think that basically that's a reaction to the budget that's been put out and sort of the incredible tax shift that we saw there. So you should expect people to be reacting that way.
Do you know what I find odd is that you hear all of this trumpeting when someone is elected governor or president, for instance, 2 years ago. The second they get in office and start doing what they said they were going to do, everybody screams, hey, wait a minute.
That's right. And in fact, some people say it depends on whose ox is gored. The reality down here is that everybody wants change unless it's their change. It's change on them. So they always look at somebody else to be the change. And, when you look at what Snyder has done so far, which is really not very much, you stack it up against the approval rating of, say, Barack Obama. There's several internet sites that say, okay, what has he really done? And then you look at the list and you say, yeah, I guess I didn't even think about all those changes, and those were good ones that I liked. So, it depends on what you like or don't like, and that always influences it. There could be a million things that you really think are good things that have changed. And then you hang your hat when you called in a poll on the one thing you really disliked.
Yeah, and it goes that way for incumbency too, doesn't it? Where they used to say, throw the bums out, but not my bum.
That's exactly right, and we see that in our races as well. Usually it's they talk about the legislature, and so when people are asked that question, what do you think the legislature is doing? They're doing a lousy job. Well, what about your representative? And the answer in the polling is usually, well, they're doing a good job, but the legislature is doing a lousy job.
I guess that's because they've seen you at events, they meet you, they know you're human. The rest of them are all sort of this nebulous body.
Yeah, it's the phrase. I've actually complained about that a little bit. Let's stop calling it the legislature, and let's start talking about what individual legislators are doing.
Has Governor Snyder done anything that's really surprised you?
I think the pension tax is a huge surprise to me.
Surprised some Republicans too, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And we took a look at that over the last 4 years as, how we could increase revenues in the state. But we saw that as a tax increase, which is what it is, and that there were some legal impediments to actually doing it, which I think are in place. And really, I don't think that goes anywhere simply because maybe the votes aren't there, but also, our research indicated that the Attorney General had ruled that you couldn't tax current pensions. You could go forward with a tax on pensions.
I wondered
and that's
about
not
that.
going to get him $900 million, so that's what he's looking for.
Yeah, and I mean, at that stage of life, knowing what your monthly is more important than ever, right? Knowing what you've got to live on.
Well, at that stage of life, yeah, and also, there aren't a lot of, like wealthy pensions out there. Actually, I think that there might be one. Former Lieutenant Governor Posthumous gets about $7,300 a month. That's a pretty healthy pension.
Okay.
But most people are, say somebody is retired in 1968 or 1975, they don't have a gigantic pension.
Yeah.
And so when you peel away even 4.5%, or we think it really works out to about 10% on pensions, then you're talking about some serious money out of the stream, and that these people will no longer have to pay for their rent, their medical requirements, or any of the other needs that a person might have.
So, do you think, like some people do, the governor's opening budget proposal was just a sort of an opening bid and negotiation?
Well, usually they are.
Yeah.
And so, but I don't know that this governor. I think this governor believes that this is the way he'd like to see it fall. I mean, it also, essentially removes a tax benefit for the working poor, and I'm not so sure that really does the job either. We think that $1 of tax benefit works in the economy to be about $1.70 in generating economic activity. This is not money that anybody saves. This is money that people spend. And so it also peels money out of small businesses and other types of businesses in the state of Michigan. We need that economic activity to generate an expansion of the economy and get us back on the right track.
It's like a Rubik's Cube. You turn it this way and something else changes, and it seems like an impossible task almost.
The one sure law is the law of unintended consequences. And
Yeah.
I'm afraid that the consequence of some of what he's proposed anyway, and I agree with cutting business taxes. I think we need to do that. But I think there are other ways to generate revenue to make up for that shortfall that results from that.
But you're a very business-friendly Democrat, are you not? That's your reputation, I think.
Called that, and I think it goes back to when I was elected to the East Lansing City Council and then as mayor. Our decision was that we wanted to become a business-friendly community, and we were widely seen as not one prior to that time. We wanted to shift the tax burden from the back of homeowners and try to get a little bit of business expansion in the city so that we could take a little bit of the burden off of our homeowners. And I think we were very successful in doing that over the 12 years that I was there.
People say, like Carol Kane just a few minutes ago, well, what are you talking about the movie tax credit? I mean, but you're a movie guy and so am I. So it's interesting, and I don't think we're unusual. I think that the part of the reason that we picked movies is that it's sexy and it gets people's attention and it brings interesting people here and it's a new industry. What do you think? Do you think we should have kept that 43% in place?
Yeah, I do, actually.
Yeah.
I think that there's nothing wrong with capping it. Maybe we shouldn't have an open-ended credit that could be $200 million in one year and, $43 million in another year. We should pick a number. First come, first serve. I'd like to see us generate, 8 or 9 movies a year in the state of Michigan. And I think there's one element of this that people forget is that assuming that we aren't portrayed in a movie as like the dumping ground of all history, this is also good advertisement for the state of Michigan. The Pure Michigan ads have worked like a champ. I mean, when you go to Chicago and you see Pure Michigan on the side of a bus going down Michigan Avenue, you realize people are thinking, what's it like on the other side of the lake? Shouldn't we go there and see? And I had a letter from a couple who lives in my district. They were up in Glen Arbor, and they wrote me a little note. They said, Mark, we counted 43 license plates, 43 different places from this country that are here today and visiting Michigan. And I think that, that's the type of advertising that we need to get out there because we have such tremendous assets here. A lot of it has to do with water, but I think people don't realize when they come to Michigan that, above Clare, we got 80% of the land covered by forests, that we have these wonderful beaches, better than any oceanfront beach. Anywhere in the nation that you can recreate on. We've got all hunting and fishing anywhere you want to go. We've got, my wife and I have a place on the AuSable River up north, one of the greatest trout streams in the entire world. And so it's, we have all these assets and we need to get the advertising out there to let people know Michigan is the place to be. And I tell college students, if you want to go to Portland and live through 9 months of rain, I guess you could go there. Chicago's very expensive. It's a lot cheaper to live here. If you want to go to Atlanta because it's such a vibrant city, remember, they aren't going to have any water very soon. You're going to be back here anyway. So stay here, work here, and we need to create some jobs for these kids, too.
It's funny. I got an email last night from a PR woman because I'm a travel writer, and she lives in Hawaii, of all places, right? Here's what she says. Michael Patrick, I adore Michigan. Great baseball and cherry spitting contests and that magical hotel on that dreamy island. So, we're it might be cold now. We might be imagining being in Maui, but in Maui they're imagining Michigan.
That's right. And even though it's cold, you can still go up north and snowshoe, ski-doo, you can do whatever you want to do up there.
Yeah, we have it all, don't we? Well, we want everyone to keep seeing it, and Pure Michigan looks like that's funded now, at least for the next year, and are we going to take that up again sometime?
Well, we had a proposal last session to add $1 to every car rental.
Yeah.
Which is basically puts the burden of funding Pure Michigan on tourists who come here. And
Without them even noticing.
Yeah, without them even noticing, and it's what every other state does for their tourism industry, but we couldn't get it through. And then this year, we're taking a little bit of the 21st Century Jobs Fund to get it going, and I guess that was painless, and that's why it was done. But we need to have a more secure funding source, and I think we need to go back to that $1 tax on a rental car. And
Did the business community really believe that no one was going to hold a business meeting here because it was going to cost $1 on a rental car?
I don't know, because I got mixed signals on that. I think a lot of business groups thought, that's fine. Nobody's going to even notice they got this buck on there.
So who killed it?
I think there was just, well, I probably should be careful what I say, but a lot of things that made sense didn't get through the Senate last time. They'd come out of the House, and I'm not saying that as a Democrat that we were responsible for great legislation all the time, but a lot of
I know
things
what
that
you're trying
both
to say.
sides of the aisle supported died in the Senate. Let me put it that way.
Because of the leadership.
The leadership was a little weak.
Okay. And now I've heard Republicans say that too.
Well, I believe they think so. In fact, sometimes I'd go across the aisle and say, what's going on down there? Why aren't we getting this done? And they'd say, who the heck knows?
Yeah. Well, you feel more confident this year, more optimistic?
Yeah, I do. I think that we're working very well together, actually. And I don't know that the change in leadership necessarily is the result there, but Randy Richardville is a former House member, and the new leader of the Senate is a reasonable guy who's easy to get to know. He's very personable. On the House side, Jace Bolger, I think, has tried to be fair to us, although we've had a lot of party line votes in the chamber so far. But some of those things are, at the beginning of a session, you see a lot of controversial stuff come through. You want to get that over with and get on to some other things, and I think that's the reason that's happening.
Well, thanks for the time this morning. Sure,
Hey,
appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
If you had a vote for Best Picture this year, which picture would you have
I would
given
have
it
picked
to?
The Fighter.
The
It wasn't
Fighter.
my choice for. I like The King's Speech, but to me that wasn't quite the challenge that the acting in The Fighter was. I mean, The Fighter had it all. Every supporting actor, even the daughters,
Yeah.
did an unbelievable job in that movie. I thought that everybody was fantastic in it.
Great seeing you. Come down again soon.
Anytime you want me.
State Representative Mark Meadows, the Democrat from East Lansing, former mayor of East Lansing, on his way to the Capitol this morning at 35 minutes after the hour. We're going to the Playboy Mansion. Virtually, thank goodness. When we get back, stay tuned for that in 4 minutes. It's Michael Patrick Shields. Well, it's a disease that's giving love a bad name at the world capital of romance. The Playboy Mansion in Hollywood. A bacteria that causes Legionnaire's disease was found after 200 revelers fell ill after a party there last month, according to health officials in Los Angeles County. What happened at the Playboy? Now, it's notorious to begin with, of course. And you might say, well, of course there's disease at the Playboy Mansion, but not the kind that's airborne, is it? Well, Dr. John Chrysler from allthingsmail.com is on the other end of our line this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael Patrick.
You have, if I'm not mistaken, been to the Playboy Mansion, have you not?
Actually, I was invited to a party there, but I wasn't able to make it to L.A. that weekend. It's too bad because I missed the opportunity to meet the Reverend Al Sharpton.
You turned down an invitation to the Playboy Mansion?
Yeah, I could have seen the good Reverend bearing witness to the young ladies there.
Now, I know a couple of guys, Kerry Mitchelson from College Fields Golf Club, who turned down an invitation to Augusta National, and Matthew Stafford, the Detroit Lions quarterback, also turned down an invitation. And I used to think that was depressing, but then when I hear that you turned down an invitation to the Playboy Mansion, I don't know what to think. Do you think you'll ever get invited again? And if you did, would you go there knowing what you know now about the place?
I suppose it'd be fun to go there and poke around for a while, but it's not such a big deal anymore, really. I mean, they sell tickets to parties there all the time. I mean, if you just go to their website, they're putting functions on continuously. So.
Oh, is that right? So it's not as exclusive as I think.
Right, a couple of my friends who have been there tell me that the place really is kind of a dive.
No
The
kidding.
TV show, the TV show where they had the three young ladies on a while back. I understand they really just film in the parts of the mansion that are still really nice, but the rest of it is kind of falling apart.
So what about this? The 200 people get sick after going there. They had fever, chills, and a cough. And is that a surprise that would happen? And what do you think happened there?
Well, the Playboy Mansion officially is still denying any diseases have come out of there.
Yeah.
It's an interesting human interest story, no question about it. Not only because it really can happen just about anywhere, but they have the infamous grotto, as you know.
Yeah.
And they're also looking at a fog machine. It's actually what they come down with is more Pontiac fever, which is a lesser form of Legionnaire's disease. Really would only be seriously dangerous to people who are immunocompromised for some reason, already had some other illnesses, which would leave them more susceptible to basically a flu that would be resolved on its own within 4 or 5 days, like coughing, chills, fever, general malaise, stuff like that. Pretty much people get over it on their own. This fog machine was in this tent where there was 700 people blowing right on everybody, and that's a perfect environment for this particular bacteria because it lives in moist soil. It gets into ventilation systems, such as when it killed those poor gentlemen from the American Legion back in Philadelphia in 1976, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So a fog machine would be great, and so would the grotto.
They talk about this bacterium that grows in warm water. There are hot tubs, right, in the grotto, and in air conditioners and inhaled in water vapor. So that would play exactly into your theory that it could have been the fog machines.
Right. Actually, there's only one hot tub in the grotto, but it holds about 200 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that sounds
bacteria-
really... I don't know if I want to get in a hot tub with 200 people. Do you?
That was my thought.
Yeah.
The disease basically spreads in aerosolized vapor, whether it's coming from a cough from somebody or a ventilation system. Of course, if it was for some reason got into this fog machine somewhere, it could be whoever they rented from just didn't clean it up properly beforehand.
Justin Bieber apparently just turned 17, and he's asked Hugh Hefner for a tour of the Playboy Mansion. Does that give him some street cred, or does that take a nice boy and turn him into a devil?
Well, I understand he is a very nice young man. I think they're asking for a young man to grow up mighty quickly.
It sure looks that way, doesn't it? We've seen this story before. Wasn't it the Miley Cyrus, the Billy Ray Cyrus said that fame destroyed his family, is what he's been saying. And Justin Bieber, for what it's worth, is apologizing. He had an angry outburst after his birthday dinner he's got a girlfriend called Selena Gomez. He flipped the bird to a group of paparazzi as they were driving away from an Italian restaurant in L.A., and now he's apologized. And he said, it's not always easy, and I know better than to react in anger. But here we go. You know, I mean, if you be careful what you wish for, is the old adage.
I wonder how many people, even at our age, could handle the pressure that young man's under.
How about pressure for Hugh Hefner being 80, what's he, in his early 80s, and he's marrying a woman in her early 20s? Have you seen that interview with Piers Morgan where the two of them were talking about their June wedding, and Hugh Hefner called her a June bride?
Yeah, his position is a personal friend of mine, who I talk to most every week. Huh. He told me Hugh Hefner came to him for his premarital exam, yeah. And my doctor friend asked him if he was planning on consummating the marriage. He said, of course he was. And he said, well, don't you think that could be a little dangerous? And Mr. Hefner said, hey, if she dies, she dies.
You tricked us all with that one there. Yeah, he's you know, they got a little fussy there when asked if they were going to be mutually exclusive, and they said, well, you know, there's everything's different about us, so they left it vague. Who knows what goes on behind those gates of the Playboy Mansion? Dr. John Chrysler can be found at allthingsmale.com, where he can help people like Hugh Hefner in their 80s who want to be like they're 20 again. Really, that's what he does. 14 before the hour, it's Michael Patrick Shields, heard all across the state of Michigan. Here's Justin Bieber. Your life includes a sports report, so let's do that this morning. The Anaheim Ducks hosted the Detroit Red Wings yesterday out in California, and radio broadcaster Ken Cal was up late and there.
Thanks, Michael Patrick. Bobby Ryan beat Jimmy Howard on a penalty shot, 2 minutes and 50 seconds in overtime, giving the Ducks a come-from-behind 2-1 win over the Red Wings last night in Anaheim. Pavel Datsyuk snapped the scoreless tie at 5:10 of the second period. He banked the shot off Duck goaltender Dan Ellis while the Red Wings were on the power play. Jason Blake tied the game at 1 when he ripped the slap shot behind Jimmy Howard at 1:54 of the third period. Ryan was hooked by Ruslan Saleh as he was breaking in cold on Jimmy Howard in overtime, and then Ryan made no mistake as he ended it on a penalty shot. The Red Wings outshot the Ducks 29-28. The final again in overtime, Anaheim 2, and the Red Wings won. That's the story from the Honda Center. Now back to you, Michael Patrick, in the studio.
Red Wings continue their road trip tonight against San Jose because presumably they know the way to San Jose. The Pistons lost to the visiting Minnesota Timberwolves 116-105 yesterday at the Palace. They host the Washington Wizards next. The Pistons do on Sunday night. The Michigan State Spartans yesterday at the Breslin Center, a 6:30 start, and they got a much-needed win on senior night, 85-66 victory over the Iowa Hawkeyes there. Keith Appling led the Spartans with 18 points. Kalen Lucas had 17, and Draymond Green had 12. Spartans are now 17-12 overall, 9-8 in Big Ten play, and they will end the regular season on the road against Michigan in Ann Arbor on Saturday afternoon. Rachel Chavez, our production assistant, was there courtside yesterday for this final home game of the season. And what was the mood in the arena?
Oh, the Izzone was in full strength. Everyone was really excited. It was really fun to be there.
So the disappointing record hasn't dampened the Izzone?
Not one bit.
Yeah, the dance team was there and the band and all that. And you sit courtside. What do you do during the games?
Well, I'm volunteering for MSU Athletic Communications and just running stats and helping out. So it's really fun.
What did they do did they have a ceremony for the seniors after the game?
Yeah, following, I think they had, I was busy doing something else, but I know they had the 3 seniors with their families alongside and had a nice ceremony.
And you also work at the Michigan State women's games as well with Susie Merchant, and they had a nicer wrap up to the home schedule, didn't they?
Yeah, that was really nice. They following their last home game, they had senior night for the 2 seniors. I think they had 2, and then presented the Big Ten banner, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Revealed the Big Ten trophy. It was really exciting.
All right, so there you have it, the end of the Michigan State home season. Where will they be going next? Well, they go to Ann Arbor Sunday and Saturday afternoon, and then the Big Ten tournament after that, and maybe the NCAA tournament. We'll have to see. That's nice to wrap up the season against the in-state rival Michigan. This time it'll be in Ann Arbor. Tony Cuthbert loves the Wolverines. Anytime you mention if you say Chelsea, he plays the Michigan State fight song. Anywhere you get near Ann Arbor, there it is. Tigers lost their first game of the season in Grapefruit League play. They fell to the Houston Astros yesterday 6-3. Cleet Thomas, Scott Thorman, and Alex Avila each drove in a run for Detroit. Phil Koch took the loss, giving up 3 hits. But the Braves are going to play the Tigers this afternoon, and they really have had a very good Grapefruit League season if you care about the wins and losses. Tiger relief pitcher Joel Zumaya, though, had a setback. He's coming back from elbow surgery, and he felt some tenderness in his right elbow during an appearance against the Blue Jays on Sunday. Jim Leland is saying it's scar tissue in his arm that broke apart and caused a little inflammation. You'll remember that Zumaya missed the last 3 months of last year's campaign when he needed surgery to repair a fracture in his elbow. The Honda Classic is on at PGA National in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, starting today. That course designed by Jack Nicklaus there, and the home of the PGA of America, in fact. The Philadelphia Eagles have signed quarterback Michael Vick to a 1-year franchise tender. They placed the franchise tag on Vick on February 15th. He's going to get a minimum of $16 million for next season, if there is a next season, because it's the last day to work out a new contract before the NFL's collective bargaining agreement expires at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. And barring a last-minute meeting of the minds, the owners are expected to lock out the players from team facilities. Well, the last time the NFL had a work stoppage, it was back in 1987, and it may happen tonight. We'll talk to Brian Rooney, a Michigan resident whose family owns the Pittsburgh Steelers, on the NFL meetings coming up a little bit later. And tennis star Serena Williams is recovering after emergency surgery. She had to get a blood clot removed from her lungs. She's 29 years old and has been sidelined with a foot injury, too. since last July, so we wish her well. We never let the birthday of a beautiful woman pass without taking note, as you know, on this program, and so we say happy birthday to Miranda Richardson. She's 53. You would have seen her in The Crying Game and Enchanted April. Julie Bowen, who has been on this program with us. You've seen her on Boston Legal and Modern Family. She's 41 today. And Jessica Biel. From I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry, Elizabethtown, Rules of Attraction, Seventh Heaven, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the A-Team, too, is 29, and we wish her a very happy birthday, too. It's 3 minutes before the hour. Michael Patrick Shields. State Senator Judy Emmons wants to speed up the adoption process. We'll find out why next hour. And Congressman Bill Huizenga, the Republican from West Michigan, will be with us, too, and the news and sports. And I'll be here. I hope you will. It's Michael Patrick Shields all across Michigan. Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant Thursday to you. It's Michael Patrick Shields. The governor's approval rating is down. The poll released found that 44% of likely Michigan voters express a favorable view of the governor. Only 44%, because it used to be 59% when the governor took office. So his approval rating has fallen from 59% to 44% if you follow these sorts of things. We spoke earlier with the state representative Mark Meadows, the Democrat from East Lansing, who is quoted as saying that allowing states to develop their own approach to health care is all positive, but I want to stick being held out there to make sure it gets done, because the president is saying basically that he's willing to back proposed legislation that would allow states to waive several key portions of last year's health care reforms. So we'll stay tuned for that and see what the details are. We could have a lockout tonight in the NFL. The owners could lock out the players because the collective bargaining agreement around the league and its players association expires at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. So at midnight, the NFL could lock the players out of the team facilities. That'd be the first work stoppage since 1987. They're trying to figure out how to divide $9 million in annual revenue, extended benefits for the retired players, and expanding the regular season by 2 games to 18. And that's got to be billion is what that is. We're going to talk with Brian Rooney, whose family owns the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's on the board of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he's a Michigan resident, coming up shortly. Gary Austin, a gunman shouting Allah Akbar, opened fire on a bus carrying U.S. airmen in Frankfurt, Germany yesterday, killing 2 and wounding 2 others. Witnesses say the man fired 9 times before his gun jammed, and he was subdued by the other passengers. German authorities are saying he was an ethnic Albanian from Kosovo taken into custody. We will ask Congressman Bill Huizenga if he knows anything more about this when we talk with him later in the program. He is a Republican from West Michigan, and the man convicted of assassinating Robert F. Kennedy has been denied parole. Sirhan Sirhan is 66 years old now. He had a request for parole and failed to show remorse or accept responsibility for the senator's death. So back into the can he goes. Gary Austin, are you present?
Thank you very much. Well, I tell you, the situation, Bobby Kennedy, 1968, it seems like forever ago, but, the situation involving Sirhan and others who were in jail for similar crimes, they have parole opportunities, and in many cases, they have no intention of ever regressing and ever saying they're sorry for what they did. Here's another case in point.
The governor this morning is going to be speaking at the Detroit Athletic Club for the Pancakes and Politics breakfast, and Senator Whitmer was with us yesterday here in studio, the Democratic Senate Democratic leader, and 10 Republican senators are joining their counterparts on the Democratic side in opposition to Governor Snyder's proposal to tax pensions, we understand.
Yeah, this is really significant and really breaking ranks. And I would say this is big, Michael Patrick, because without these votes, this one doesn't have a prayer of making it through the state Senate. The governor contends by doing this, $900 million would be generated, and by way of savings. Other parts of the governor's budget include things like cutting education, the Michigan Film Incentive Program, and scrapping the Michigan business tax. And Michael Patrick, you've got to wonder, could this be an opening salvo? I mean, I could see maybe 1 or 2 Republicans saying, no, Governor Snyder, we're not going to go along with this, but 10. That's a significant number, and if 10 do it this time, will 10 do it or more on other important issues that the governor says is vital to get his new budget in place.
That's really the sort of first thank you, no thank you that the governor's getting in office, isn't it?
And it's very early, too. The question is, could we see more of this sort of thing?
Well, let's ask, why don't we, since we have the ability to do that, State Senator Judy Emmons, the Republican from Sheridan. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Are you one of the 10 Republicans that is not in favor of Governor Snyder's idea to tax pensions?
I'm not listed in the group of 10. Apparently, I wasn't aware that there was an entire group of 10. So,
would you like?
I am still contemplating this budget. I don't think we know all the details, and I certainly don't. I'm not serving on appropriations. I know they're more aware, but it's a complete package, and I think we have to determine what you trade for revenue if you don't use that one.
Just in principle, are you behind or against the idea of taxing pensions?
It's an interesting concept. The question becomes, was this money that's being proposed to be taxed, was it taxed before? Mm-hmm. I'm hearing both sides. So until I sort that out, I don't know.
You wouldn't want it to be double taxed, would you?
You wouldn't want anybody to be double taxed.
Yeah. The other legislation that you're talking about this morning, you want to help speed up adoptions and guardianships. Can you tell us what that bill would do and why?
Actually, this is a package of bills, and will be in our committee. And what this is for children whose parents, their parental rights have been terminated, they are under the jurisdiction of the Michigan Children's Institute. And it appears that there is only one person, the MCI superintendent, who can grant consent for adoption. And a few years back, when Maura Corrigan was the Michigan Supreme Court Justice, she pulled together with the DHS Director Ishmael Ahmed 13 counties that had the largest adoption dockets, and they put their heads together to come up with some ways to speed up this process. So that's what these bills do, and it authorizes under clarification and certain standards other representatives within DHS that may appoint a designee to consent to the adoption of a child.
You going to get likely support for that?
I believe so. Folks understand that the best place for a child is a good, stable home, and that you want that for these children. They need that, and it will serve them well. I can't believe that folks would have too much consternation supporting this.
It sounds like it's mainly a red tape issue. Is that fair to say it that way?
I don't know if you'd call it a red tape issue. I think it's just the fact that current law only allows one person, and that's the superintendent, to make the determination to allow an adoption. And when you have so many children needing that, it just slows the process down enormously.
Okay, thank you very much for explaining that to us. It's Senate Bill 218, 219, and 220, and she is State Senator Judy Emmons, the Republican from Sheridan, at 15 minutes after the hour. Gary Austin, a Wyoming man, is in jail accused of sexually assaulting a 4-year-old girl. 19-year-old Christopher Shortzel will be arraigned today on charges connected with assault of the child. Kent County prosecutors say he's admitted his actions and indicated there may be more victims.
Yeah, that's one of those cases. Allegations are he's actually admitted to all of this. Where this case goes from here, we'll see. You know, for those who are cited for some traffic violations, get a load of this, Michael. Pat, you hear about this? You can avoid getting points on your driver's license if you do this. You take a basic driver improvement course. That's it. Pass that, do good. Any points are gone.
You still
Violation
have to pay the
clean.
fine, though.
Yeah, there is a hook here, though. We should note speeding is one of the violations that qualify for this. But yeah, you will be charged. You're on the hook for whatever fines are leveled, and also the usual court tab as well.
Yeah, and you can take it online, as I understand, too, so it's even easier than you might have imagined.
You know, this flap stirred up by radio and TV host Glenn Beck is not going away. We have 2 Detroit ministers. They want to meet with execs at Fox to talk about this. Horace Sheffield and Charles Williams. They say it's unfair what Beck said about Detroit. Not very complimentary, comparing Detroit to Hiroshima. Not the Hiroshima of today, not even close, but the city as it looked in August 1945, right after we dropped the atomic bomb on it. So
Yeah, you know
it's still
what we'll do is when we
stirring it
get
up.
back from the break, we'll play a selection of what Glenn Beck said about Hiroshima and Detroit because the Mayor Bing is at the Pancakes and Politics this morning down at the Detroit Athletic Club, and it's still the buzz in Detroit that this guy would take a shot at Michigan's biggest city like that. And,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
it did.
he did it on his Fox News show
Yeah.
on television.
A
The search
lot of
is on
chatter. Yes.
suspects in connection with a fire at a Grand Rapids condominium complex. The blaze at Fairmount Square was arson. And there were threatening letters sent to residents of the East Hills neighborhood, and the investigators did not find incendiary devices, but they found accelerants in 2 spots. So
Yeah, this is an ongoing story.
Jeez.
Alleged letters being sent. I mean, this is really getting serious.
it's
Jim,
terrorism, isn't it?
well, it was sort of. That's what those who live there are saying. Clearly, they don't know what's going to happen next, and they want police to take action. Hey, in Troy, you got to hear what this guy did. 22 years old, right? Stopped by the cops for breaking the city's law that says no cell phone chatter, period, and driving at the same time, right?
Yeah.
But here's what happened. Officers pulled him over, and they tried to talk to him. What did he do? He kept on talking on his cell phone. He wouldn't quit. He said he had to explain to the boss he'd be late for work.
Yep.
Yeah, and to make
you
things
know-
worse, police allege he gave them a phony name. Turns out this guy, boy, the list is piling up. Driving on a suspended license because of a DUI conviction. He was arrested, his car impounded, and no, he never did make it to work that day.
Wow. When we get back, we'll find out if there's a future for the NFL. And there was a person pulled over, Gary Austin, talking on to this program on the phone one time. I'll tell you that story when we get back.
I can't wait.
In 4 minutes, it's Michael Patrick Shields. So, Gary Austin, you were telling me about a man who was pulled over talking on his cell phone and kept talking on the phone rather than address the police.
Yeah, he said he had to phone the boss to tell him he was going to be late for work.
Because
Probably
he got
not
pulled
a good
over.
idea. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Well, there was a time I was interviewing. I've never revealed who this was, and I think I will now, though.
Be careful. Be careful.
Yeah, I was interviewing
Once
a woman.
it's gone, it's gone. All right.
Yeah, you're right, too.
All right.
It could make the internet. I was interviewing a woman,
Yep.
and it was a woman that we'd had on the show fairly regularly.
All right.
She was on the phone, and she sounded a little off. You know, she was usually a much better guest, and she sounded a little hesitant. And so the interview ended kind of awkwardly. So after the program, I called her off the air, and I said, "Are you okay? You sounded a little unusual." And she said, "Well, I got pulled over in the middle of the interview."
Michael Patrick, don't give her name.
And she kept
Don't
talking.
give her name.
She kept talking to me.
All right.
Just as you said, this story with the guy,
Yeah.
she said the police were knocking on the window of her car, and she was putting up one finger saying, "Just a minute," while she was finishing the interview with me.
All right.
Because, she was on the radio. She didn't want to just hang up,
Right.
So this woman was, she said the police did not like that very much. They didn't care who she was talking to, whether it was, Michael Patrick Shields or, President Obama. They wanted her to hang up the phone and pay attention to them.
You know, it would have been a cool story if now you could say her name if it turned out this way. If the officer said, "Oh, you're talking with MPS," well, then go right ahead. As soon as you're done, we'll be in the squad
No.
car. Just let us know.
She got the ticket.
She
You're
did.
saying I shouldn't name who this is because a lot of people will know who it is.
Don't. I don't want to have
Really?
to testify in a civil trial. Don't.
Okay.
I don't want
Well,
to.
let me just say this
careful.
much then.
Right.
The irony of it all
Yeah.
is that the woman I was talking to
Yes.
worked for
Careful.
the
Careful.
Secretary of State.
Don't. Well, that narrows it down.
So, it was just kind of funny that someone working for the Secretary of State
Yeah.
got pulled over, got the ticket while talking to me on the phone.
Okay. Well.
Okay.
That's sort of what? Did you say sort of funny?
Funny. Yeah,
Jeez.
ironic, isn't it?
A ticket. So what is the deal now? Ticket for talking on a cell phone. What is it?
I don't know. It's
Mike?
different in every state. I don't know. In New York, you can't talk on the phone at all. I think you have to be hands-free in certain states. You can't
Yeah.
text in certain states.
It's different.
The Dow was up 9 yesterday. The S&P up 2 points, and the NASDAQ was up 11 points for what it's worth. And Gary Austin, we've been hearing
Yeah.
all this talk about what Glenn Beck said about the city of Detroit. He's a Fox News television host. He's got a radio program, too. And the mayor of Detroit is up in arms. Everybody's up in arms. And the governor is in Detroit today. for the Pancakes and Politics breakfast, and they're all there together, lots of the state leaders. So let's hear a little bit of what Glenn Beck said when he compared Hiroshima to downtown Detroit.
It's Hiroshima. Let me show you another city. Here's a city that when Hiroshima looked like it did in destruction, this city looked like this. It was thriving. It's Detroit, Michigan. But take a look at Detroit today. One city embraced the free market system and the entrepreneurial spirit. The other embraced progressive policies and corrupt government and unions and companies that weren't allowed to fail, and they should have failed because they stunk on ice. They begged for a bailout and got one, and the union bosses did their share too. Whereas Hiroshima has nearly quadrupled in size since the attack. Not so much with Detroit. Less than 50% of Detroit's peak population of 1.8 million in 1950 still live in the city. 36% of Detroit's residents live in poverty. Detroit's poverty rate is more than double than that as the entire U.S. as a whole. 81% of Detroit's public school students qualified for free and reduced price lunches in 2009. 81%. As far as education, about 42% of Detroit's public school students don't even graduate. Half. Now, the problem for the left is they can't say, oh, Detroit inherited this problem from the big evil George Bush. These are the failed policies of his corporate cronies and the fat cat rich friends. Really? Democrats have been in power for Detroit for over 50 years. No, Mr. Beck, it was the big three auto corporations that ruled Detroit. That's what killed Motown. I want you to know that those companies sucked. But it had nothing to do with Democratic policies or corruption, like that of convicted former Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick. And it had certainly nothing to do with the unions there. Right. The unions were only there for the workers. Well, no, not according to Richard Trumka, the head of the AFL-CIO. He cares about you? Watch.
I got into the labor movement not because I wanted to negotiate wages. I got into the labor movement because I saw it as a vehicle to do massive social change to improve the lots of people. That's why I got into the labor movement.
So it's not about your wages. It's about the progressive ideas. He believes in those ideas. Oh, you can blame Ford and GM. They're bad corporate policies. And those policies, because of the progressives, weren't allowed to reset. Nobody allowed them to fail. Bad policies and union deals helped rot this city from the core. This is the path, America, that we are now embracing. We are embracing now a country that loves corruption, special favors, union deals and big unions, and bailing out businesses that should have failed because they were run poorly. This city did what our country is doing now, embracing all the policies that led to this. But it doesn't have to be this way. But you, the citizen, the shareholder in the United States of America, has to make the choice. Our founder said that you...
So there's Glenn Beck, Gary Austin, comparing what happened in Detroit to Hiroshima, he called it. And what's your reaction?
Well, he's trying to make a point. He's listing stats, and there are many conservatives who are saying, when it comes to the stats and the problems the big city is having, they're saying, yeah, he's right. However, I think the problem he runs into is the comparison with the terrible devastation and all the lives that were lost in August of 1945 when the Enola Gay dropped the first of two atomic bombs on the major Japanese city to effectively end the Second World War, Hiroshima in this case. And I think he's trying to make a point, but probably if he had to do it again, he probably would have left out the Hiroshima comparison. But you got to figure, Glenn Beck, he isn't where he is because he's a dummy. He's a good entertainer. He's a smart guy. I don't think, right, left, wherever you are politically, you can't argue that. Someone doesn't reach that kind of national notoriety on a national political stage the way he has. Yeah, but you got to figure,
he likes
though,
to poke the bear.
Do you think, though, that being the case, do you think this was intentional? Do you think he knew going in that if he made this comparison, kind of really pushing it here, that in turn would get everybody talking like we are? You have to wonder.
Let's ask Brian Rooney, Gary, who ran for United States Congress from living in Michigan, the Ann Arbor-Jackson area. Welcome back to the program, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me, Michael Patrick.
What do you think to his point that maybe the autos should have been allowed to fail? Does that make any sense?
Well, he's wrong about the big three, using the term he used.
Yeah.
Ford's, is a model of how to be successful and weather a tough economic environment. And I disagree with some of the ways we did the bailout. I would have gone for a true bankruptcy procedure and backed up the bankruptcy so we wouldn't have allowed them to liquidate GM or Chrysler. But, manufacturing in this state and this country is way too important to let it die. If we're outsourcing everything we have to China or India, and China, is not necessarily our friend, I get concerned from a national security point of view. So I don't have a problem with us saving the big three or two of the big three.
On another topic, we're coming down to the wire tonight. Are we going to be able to save the NFL season? We're at the deadline tonight for the negotiations between the owners and the Players Association. You are on the board of the Pittsburgh Steelers. What are you hearing? Could there be some last-minute agreement?
There always could be. I suspect, and this is my own personal opinion, that we probably won't have a deal tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hopeful that we'll have a deal before the preseason starts. But if the past is prelude, we probably won't, and we may lose half the season. I hope that doesn't happen, but we're talking about a lot of egos, a lot of money, and people being able to live with that for 5 to 10 years. And we have a new NFL Players Association representative because Gene Upshaw passed away. And Gene Upshaw had a much broader view of things than potentially this new crop of folks do. But we'll see what happens. The biggest sticking point with the owners is that the last collective bargaining agreement, they gave up a bigger piece of the pie than that they get than the players get. And so just from an optics point of view, owners most likely believe that they should get at least 50.1% and players should get everything else. Right now, players get, more percentage of the pie than the owners do. And, that's just not a good business model.
Yeah, it's simple as that. I mean, it seems like clear-cut and easy, but it's not going to be that way. I see that Big Ben Roethlisberger got engaged, huh?
Well, we wish him the best of luck. Anybody that, goes into getting married like he is with the spotlight on him, he's going to have a lot of, marriage is it's tough from the, to go through in the beginning, and so Ben's going to have a big spotlight on him through it, and hopefully it works out.
She must be some kind of woman. That's all I can say. I mean, she's got to be strong.
That's for sure. Definitely with what the spotlight that's going to be on her, because the way pro sports are, they get involved in people's personal lives, and of course Ben's already put himself out there with the myriad of issues that he has, and so again, marriage is a great institution. I wish him the best of luck. But it's tough, and he needs to, hopefully understand that and be able to work things out.
Well, there's an old expression, eyes wide shut, and if she's not looking at his past performance when she's betting that horse, we'll see how it all shakes out.
Yes, that's true. But I believe in redemption, and hopefully Ben will get there.
Let's hope that maybe we can come to an agreement tonight. Nobody wants to see a work stoppage in the NFL. We love it. We count on it, and good luck to you, and we'll be in touch soon. And happy St. Patrick's Day in advance.
Thank you. You too.
All the best to Brian Rooney from the board of the Pittsburgh Steelers, living right here in the Ann Arbor area of Michigan, and ran for Congress, and maybe will run again. We'll be in touch. 35 after the hour. It's Michael Patrick Shields all across Michigan. We are counting down the days till our St. Patrick's Day broadcast live from County Clare, Ireland, the Doonbeg Golf Club. And Boy, that's going to be a lot of fun indeed. And we have been meeting people along the way here who've been listed among the Irish Global 100 by Irish America magazine. These are the top 100 Irish people in the world. And that is quite a distinction. Peter Quinn is one of them. He has written for the New York Times, and he is an esteemed chronicler of Irish America. Good morning and happy St. Patrick's Day in advance to you.
Same to you, Michael Patrick.
Your book, Looking for Jimmy, A Search for Irish America, is a collection of essays about the Irish in New York. But when we think about the Irish, we often think about Boston, we often think about Chicago, and we often think about New York. Which of the three best represents Irish America?
Well, I would be prejudiced there as a native of the Bronx and say New York. But the book is actually more about my family coming to New York and its connections to Ireland and what it represents in the whole Irish world of immigration. So it's not just really about New York.
They turn the river green in Chicago, and of course Boston. And then the big surprise too is that the biggest, as I understand it, St. Patrick's Day parade in America is in Savannah, Georgia. Curiously.
I'm not sure if it's the biggest. There are 1 million people march in New York, so I can't imagine it being larger in Savannah.
Well, it's a lot.
That might be regional prejudice. This is the 250th anniversary of the New York Parade, too, so it's got a tremendous tradition.
The story of the Irish immigrant in America, we presume, traces back to the potato famine, that dreadful time in Ireland when people thought of America as having the streets lined with gold. What did they find when they really came from Ireland to the States?
Yeah, well, they always say they found out the streets weren't paved with gold. They weren't paved at all, and the Irish were expected to pave them. So it was really a difficult journey into America that I think a lot of times has been romanticized. That the amount of prejudice they met, the Know-Nothing Party, and the poverty they endured, and it was a long struggle, longer than people remember, I think.
The reputation of the Irish, too, was not good. They had these NENA laws, no Irish need apply.
Right.
How did the Irish overcome that reputation? First of all, why did they get that reputation? And second of all, how did they overcome it to the point where we had an Irish American as president of the United States?
Well, they arrived in terrible condition. That they were people, they were impoverished farmers, and they came to the United States without any skills. They came with a religion that most Americans found very foreign and threatening, Roman Catholicism. So, just those two burdens. About 2/3 of the Femme immigrants, Irish was their first or second language, so there was even a language barrier that we'd forgotten. So they started at the very bottom of the barrel and of the ladder, and they were all stereotypes of the Irish, in cartoons as kind of semi-ape men. Some of it was semi-scientific. They had all these theories of Irish racial inferiority. And it was a long struggle against that. And I think, it was three things that really allowed the Irish to come: politics, religion, and organized labor. Those were the three organizing principles that they regrouped around and built their way into America.
When you think of your visits to Ireland, if you could sort of push a button and have Scotty beam you there right now, where
Can
would
you do that?
Yeah, well, in your dreams anyway, right?
Yeah.
Where would you go and what would you do?
I spent a semester in 30 years ago at University College Galway, and I've always loved Galway in the West. I would go there this afternoon and sit in the pub and have a pint with you.
That would be pretty good. And, that's part of the stereotype, too, in that St. Patrick's Day here in the States is a day that it's almost like New Year's Eve, where people just want to go and whoop it up and drink like crazy. And they say, well, the Irish are all drinkers. But the simple point is that the homes were very small. And so the pub was like a common living room for most people in the evenings, right? It wasn't that they were going to get smashed.
I mean, that was carried over into the United States, really. Saloons were more than places to drink. They were labor halls. They were places for political organizations. A great part of Irish life, traditional Irish life, was singing and storytelling and gathering together. That's why a lot of Irish didn't go to the West, because they had this love of community and common celebrations. And the idea of the rugged individual was kind of foreign to them. They were more a people of tight communities.
Convivial indeed, and on St. Patrick's Day in Ireland, it's more like a family day, more like Easter, I guess I would describe it as, than it is.
In New York, it's become kind of like a Mardi Gras, where you don't have to be, that's the saying, you don't have to be Irish to celebrate St. Patrick's Day in New York. It's just, it's a rite of spring now, as much as a celebration of Irish immigration.
Yeah, it sure is. And in Detroit, in the Michigan area, we have Corktown, where lots of people emigrated from County Cork, and they love to celebrate their heritage, too. So we wish you congratulations on being named one of the Irish America Irish Global 100, and we will look out for your book called Looking for Jimmy, A Search for Irish America, a collection of essays about the Irish in New York. Slán go fóill to you.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to you, Michael.
And Gora Mahagat, thank you very much to Peter Quinn at 45 minutes after the hour. We will be live from the Doonbeg Golf Club in County Clare, Ireland on St. Patrick's Day. That's just about 30 minutes from the Shannon Airport, thanks to the Villages of Tullymore, which is in Stanwood, not too far from Mount Pleasant, very close to Big Rapids, where they have adopted some of the Irish logo and certainly some of the Irish warmth. If you're looking to plan your spring trip, Tullymore. And if you want to go to Ireland, you can do that too, virtually with us on March 17th on television and radio. And we'll tell you then, too, how you can get on the Big Bird, the Delta Jet, and get yourself over to Ireland and have just as good a time as we're going to have. 13, make it 14 now before the hour when we get back. United States Congressman Bill Huizenga, the Republican from Holland. 10 minutes before the hour. As you know by now, the United States House of Representatives passed a short-term bill that would save taxpayers more than $4 billion and fund the government through March 18th. It's a bipartisan measure supported by 100 House Democrats, Senate Democrats also. So slated to pass it this week, avoiding a government shutdown, Congressman Bill Huizenga, the Republican from West Michigan, on the other end of our line. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, MTS. Good to be with you.
We have been awfully sort of preoccupied with what's going on in Michigan and when it comes to the budget proposal from the governor and the fallout and that sort of thing. Can you bring us up to date on what's happening at the federal level?
Yeah, we last 2 weeks ago, we had passed a continuing resolution here in the House of Representatives that would have set us up for the remainder of the fiscal year. Mm-hmm. That was a $100 billion cut bill. That was rejected by the Senate, and in a way to try to build some time in for some negotiations, we passed a 2-week prorated bill. So that's that $4 billion that you were talking about. You take $100 billion, divide that up by the number of weeks we've got, approximately $4 billion. So these were real cuts that were put forward, and I can tell you all the papers out here in D.C. this morning. They're chalking this up as a win for the American people because it's something for the first time. But you've got the other side of it. So this is a small step.
Small step indeed, and we have a bad cell connection there in Washington, D.C., so we will reconnect with you again next week. Congressman Bill Huizenga, the Republican from West Michigan, who says, hey, we gave him something to do. We gave him a good one, and it didn't go. So now we're going to go measure by measure here at the federal level when it comes to keeping the government paid and going, moving forward. Michigan State Spartans moved forward yesterday. To what end, we still don't know, but they went ahead and beat Iowa at the Breslin Center. The game started at 6:30. Senior night, of course, the last home game of the year, 85-66 win over Iowa. Keith Appling led the Spartans with 18 points, and they will end the regular season on the road against Michigan in Ann Arbor on Saturday afternoon. The Spartans are now 17-12 overall, and 9-8 in Big Ten play, and that's well, you know, we've got fans from Michigan, and we've got fans of Michigan State. Even though we are headquartered here in the state capital, we have listeners all across the state of Michigan, and Mount Pleasant, and Petoskey, and Traverse City, and Hastings, and Lansing, and Saginaw, and Grand Rapids, and Kalamazoo, and Muskegon, and St. Joe, and Benton Harbor, and even in Howell, Michigan, and everywhere in between. So we've got Michigan fans and Michigan State fans, but we're hoping both of those teams can advance to the NCAA tournament, but it looks like that may be faint hope. We'll see. Spartans are 17-12 overall, 9-8 in Big Ten play. The Tigers lost their first game of the Grapefruit League season in Florida. The Houston Astros got them 6-3. They've got the Atlanta Braves this afternoon. Yeah, that's the first time they lost. And Joel Zumaya, a little setback. He's trying to get back from elbow surgery, but he had a little tenderness in that elbow, and he's hoping to be back. You'll remember that he missed the last 3 months of 2010 when he needed surgery to repair that fracture in the elbow. Pistons lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves yesterday, 116-105 at the Palace. They host the Washington Wizards Sunday night. The Honda Classic is on at PGA National in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. They're underway already there this morning. Eagles have signed Michael Vick to a one-year franchise tender contract. He's going to get a minimum of $16 million if there is a 2011 season. And we talked to Brian Rooney, who was on the board of the Pittsburgh Steelers a few minutes ago, and he said it looks like we're not going to get an NFL labor deal done by midnight tonight, and probably not by the start of training camp, and we may lose half the season. Next year, Serena Williams is recovering after emergency surgery to remove a blood clot from her lungs. She's 29 years old. She's had a foot injury since last July as well. And the Red Wings were in action yesterday. Late game out in Anaheim, California against the Ducks, and radio broadcaster Ken Kal was there.
Thanks, Michael Patrick. Bobby Ryan beat Jimmy Howard on a penalty shot. 2 minutes and 50 seconds in overtime, giving the Ducks a come-from-behind 2-1 win over the Red Wings last night in Anaheim. Pavel Datsyuk snapped the scoreless tie at 5:10 of the second period. He banked a shot off Duck goaltender Dan Ellis while the Red Wings were on the power play. Jason Blake tied the game at 1 when he ripped the slap shot behind Jimmy Howard at 1:54 of the third period. Ryan was hooked by Ruslan Saleh as he was breaking in cold on Jimmy Howard in overtime, and then Ryan made no mistake as he ended it on a penalty shot. The Red Wings outshot the Ducks 29-28. The final again in overtime, Anaheim 2, and the Red Wings won. That's the story from the Honda Center. Now back to you, Michael Patrick, in the studio.
Detroit's road trip continues tonight against the San Jose Sharks. Christina Aguilera hasn't commented yet on her recent arrest for public intoxication, but some of her friends are speaking out and they say they're worried. They say that Christina Aguilera hasn't realized yet just how difficult it is to move on after a divorce. She split with her music executive husband, Benjamin Bratman, late last year, and she thinks she's gotten her life back together and already moved on, but maybe she needs some more time to process it. She was arrested along with her boyfriend, Matthew Rutler, early Tuesday morning after police pulled them over for driving erratically. She's not going to face charges, but he's going to get DUI. It's bad publicity for her, though, to be sure. Television viewers, thanks for being with us this morning. Radio listeners, stay where you are. There's another hour of Your Thursday with me, Michael Patrick Shields.
Bye, goodbye, good friends, good.